Baby found a German Shepherd living inside an abandoned vending machine. What he did next shocked everyone. A 6-year-old boy discovered something that would change everything. What happened next will leave you speechless. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The story you're about to listen to started on a Tuesday afternoon that felt like any other day. But sometimes the most ordinary moments hide the most extraordinary secrets. Little Marcus had always been curious about everything. His bright green eyes would light up whenever he found something new to explore. That afternoon, he was playing outside his grandmother's small diner on the edge of Willowbrook, a quiet town where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. At least, that's what everyone thought. His grandmother, Rose, was busy cleaning tables inside the diner when Marcus wandered a bit further than usual. The late afternoon sun painted everything in golden light, and Marcus could hear the distant hum of traffic from the main road. But something else caught his attention, a sound he couldn't quite place. Marcus walked toward the old Sunoco gas station that had been abandoned for years. The windows were boarded up, and weeds grew through cracks in the concrete. But what drew his attention were the 3 old vending machines lined up against the side of the building. They looked like colorful metal boxes that time had forgotten. The first machine was for sodas, its glass front cracked and empty. The second one used to sell chips and candy, but now it just held dust and spider webs. But the third machine, the one at the end, was different. Marcus could hear something coming from inside it, a soft scratching sound, followed by what sounded like whimpering. Marcus stepped closer, his small sneakers crunching on the gravel. The sound grew louder. It definitely wasn't his imagination. Something was alive inside that vending machine. But how was that even possible? He pressed his ear against the cold metal surface. The whimpering became clearer now, and Marcus felt his heart start to race. It sounded like an animal in distress. But what kind of animal could fit inside a vending machine? And how did it get there? Marcus ran his small hands along the edges of the machine, looking for any opening. The front glass was too thick to break, and the sides seemed solid. But then he noticed something strange. The bottom corner of the machine looked different. There was a small gap where the metal had bent outward, as if something had forced its way through. Marcus knelt down and peered through the gap. At first, all he could see was darkness. But then, 2 amber eyes stared back at him. Marcus gasped and fell backward onto the gravel. Those weren't just any eyes. They belonged to a dog. A big dog. And it was trapped inside that vending machine. Marcus quickly got back on his knees and looked through the gap again. This time, he could make out more details. It was a German Shepherd, and it looked hurt. The dog's fur was matted and dirty, and Marcus could see that it was breathing heavily. But what struck him most was the look in the dog's eyes. It wasn't just fear, it was desperation. "Hey there," Marcus whispered softly, the way his grandmother had taught him to talk to scared animals. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The dog's ears perked up slightly at the sound of Marcus's voice. It whimpered again, but this time it sounded different. Less scared, more hopeful. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a granola bar he had been saving for later. He unwrapped it carefully and broke off a small piece. Then he pushed it through the gap in the machine. The dog sniffed the food cautiously before eating it. Marcus could see its tail move just slightly, which he took as a good sign. He broke off another piece and offered it through the gap. "What are you doing in there?" Marcus asked quietly. "How did you get stuck?" The dog seemed to understand that Marcus was trying to help. It moved closer to the gap, and Marcus could see more of its face now. The German Shepherd was beautiful, with intelligent eyes and a noble expression, despite its current condition. Marcus noticed something else. The dog kept looking toward the back of the machine, as if it was protecting something. But what could be back there? "Are you alone in there?" Marcus asked. The dog whimpered again and looked toward the back of the machine. Marcus was sure now. There was something else inside that vending machine, something the dog was protecting. Marcus stood up and walked around the machine, looking for another way to see inside. He found a small vent near the top back corner. By climbing on an old crate, he could just barely peek through it. What he saw made his heart stop. Behind the German Shepherd, curled up on what looked like an old blanket, were 2 tiny puppies. They couldn't have been more than a few days old. Their eyes weren't even open yet, and they were so small Marcus could have held both of them in his hands. The mother dog had somehow gotten inside this vending machine and given birth to her puppies. But how? And why hadn't she been able to get out? Marcus climbed down from the crate and went back to the gap at the bottom of the machine. The mother dog was watching him intently, as if she knew he had seen her babies. "Don't worry," Marcus said softly. "I'm going to help you. I'm going to get you out of there." But as Marcus examined the machine more closely, he realized this wasn't going to be easy. The gap at the bottom was too small for the mother dog to squeeze through, especially with her puppies, and Marcus was just a 6-year-old boy. How could he possibly open a vending machine? Marcus looked around the abandoned gas station for something that might help. He found an old tire iron leaning against the building. It was heavy, but he managed to drag it over to the vending machine. He positioned the tire iron against the bent corner of the machine and pushed with all his strength. The metal groaned and moved slightly, but not enough to make the gap bigger. Marcus was getting frustrated. The mother dog was watching him through the gap, and he could see the trust in her eyes. She was counting on him to save her and her babies, but he was just a kid. What could he do? Then Marcus remembered something his grandfather used to tell him before he passed away. "Sometimes, Marcus, the answer isn't about being strong. Sometimes it's about being smart." Marcus studied the vending machine again. There had to be a way to open it. All vending machines had to have a way for people to refill them, right? There had to be a door somewhere. Marcus walked around to the front of the machine and looked more carefully. Behind the cracked glass, he could see the rows where snacks used to be displayed. But at the very bottom, almost hidden by dirt and rust, he saw something that made his pulse quicken. A keyhole, small and nearly invisible, but definitely there. Marcus ran his fingers along the front of the machine until he found what he was looking for. A thin line in the metal that marked where a door would open. The entire front panel of the machine was actually a door, designed to swing open for refilling, but it was locked. And Marcus didn't have a key. Marcus sat down on the gravel, thinking hard. The mother dog was still watching him through the gap, and he could hear the tiny mewling sounds of the puppies. Time was running out. The sun was starting to set, and his grandmother would be looking for him soon. Marcus examined the keyhole more closely. It was old and rusty, and when he pushed on it, it wiggled slightly. Maybe the lock wasn't as strong as it looked. Marcus went back to the tire iron and carried it to the front of the machine. He positioned the flat end against the lock and pushed. Nothing happened. He tried again, pushing harder this time. On the third try, something gave way. The lock mechanism made a grinding sound, and Marcus heard a click. The door moved slightly. Marcus dropped the tire iron and grabbed the edge of the door. It was heavy, but it began to swing open. The hinges creaked loudly, protesting years of rust and neglect. As the door opened wider, Marcus could see inside the vending machine clearly for the first time. The mother dog was pressed against the back wall, her body curved protectively around 2 tiny puppies lying on what looked like an old diner napkin. The dog looked up at Marcus, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then the dog did something that Marcus would never forget. She picked up one of the puppies gently in her mouth and walked toward Marcus. She set the puppy down at his feet, then went back for the second one. It was as if she was entrusting her babies to him. Marcus knelt down and looked at the tiny puppies. They were so small and helpless, their pink skin showing through their thin fur. They made tiny squeaking sounds as they moved. The mother dog sat down in front of Marcus and looked directly into his eyes. Marcus had never seen such intelligence in an animal before. She was trying to tell him something. "You need help," Marcus said softly. "You all need help." The dog whimpered once and then did something that shocked Marcus. She walked to the back corner of the vending machine and used her nose to push something toward him. It was a small piece of fabric, dirty and torn. But as Marcus picked it up, he realized it wasn't just any fabric. It was a collar, a dog collar that had been cut off, with a metal tag still attached. Marcus wiped the dirt off the tag and read the name etched into the metal, Zara. "Is that your name?" Marcus asked. "Are you Zara?" The dog's ears perked up at the sound of her name, and her tail wagged slightly. But Marcus noticed something else about the collar. It looked military, with thick nylon strapping and heavy-duty hardware. This wasn't an ordinary pet collar. Marcus looked at Zara again, really studying her this time. She was a beautiful German shepherd, but there was something different about her. She carried herself with a confidence and alertness that Marcus had never seen in other dogs. And despite being trapped in that vending machine, possibly for days, she was still focused on protecting her puppies. "Where did you come from, Zara?" Marcus whispered. But before Zara could respond in her own way, Marcus heard a voice calling his name from the direction of the diner. "Marcus! Marcus, where are you?" It was his grandmother Rose, and she sounded worried. Marcus realized he had been gone longer than he thought. The sun was almost down, and the shadows were growing long. "I'm here, Grandma," Marcus called back. "I'm at the old gas station." Marcus could hear his grandmother's footsteps crunching on the gravel as she approached. He looked at Zara and the puppies, then back toward the sound of his grandmother's voice. "Don't worry," he told Zara. "I'm going to help you. I promise." Marcus stood up just as his grandmother rounded the corner of the building. Rose was 68 years old, with silver hair pulled back in a bun and kind eyes that always seemed to see everything. But when she saw Marcus standing in front of the open vending machine with a German shepherd and two tiny puppies, her eyes went wide with surprise. "Marcus," she said slowly, "what on earth?" "Grandma, I found them," Marcus said quickly. "Zara was trapped in the vending machine with her babies. She couldn't get out. I had to help her." Rose approached cautiously, her eyes moving between Marcus, the dog, and the puppies. "Marcus, honey, you need to be careful. We don't know anything about this dog. She could be dangerous." But as Rose got closer, Zara did something that surprised both of them. She walked over to Rose and sat down at her feet, looking up at her with the same intelligent, pleading expression she had given Marcus. "Oh my," Rose said softly. "You're not dangerous at all, are you, girl?" Zara's tail wagged slightly, and she looked back at her puppies, then back at Rose. The message was clear. Please help us. Rose knelt down and examined the puppies more closely. "These babies are very young," she said. "Maybe only a few days old. They need warmth and food, and their mother needs care too." Marcus felt a surge of hope. "Can we help them, Grandma? Can we take them home?" Rose looked at Marcus, then at Zara, then at the open vending machine. "How did she get in there in the first place? And how did you manage to open that door?" Marcus explained everything that had happened, from hearing the whimpering to finding the collar with Zara's name on it. Rose listened carefully, her expression growing more puzzled with each detail. "This is very strange," Rose said finally. "A dog doesn't just end up trapped in a vending machine, and this collar." She picked up the military-style collar and examined it closely. "This isn't from a pet store, Marcus. This is professional equipment." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked. "I'm not sure," Rose admitted, "but I think there's more to this story than we know." As if responding to Rose's words, Zara walked back to the vending machine and disappeared inside for a moment. When she came back out, she was carrying something in her mouth. She dropped it at Rose's feet. It was a small plastic bag, sealed tight and wrapped in what looked like waterproof material. Inside the bag, Marcus could see a folded piece of paper. Rose picked up the bag and looked at it closely. "Zara, where did you get this?" Zara looked at the bag, then at Rose, then back at the bag. She was trying to communicate something important. "I think she wants us to open it," Marcus said. Rose carefully opened the waterproof bag and pulled out the folded paper. As she unfolded it, Marcus could see that it was covered with official-looking text and symbols. At the top of the page was a logo he didn't recognize, but Rose's face went pale when she saw it. "Oh my goodness," Rose whispered. "What is it, Grandma?" Rose folded the paper quickly and put it back in the bag. "Marcus, we need to get Zara and her puppies to the house right away, and then we need to make some phone calls." "But what was on that paper?" Marcus asked. Rose looked at him seriously. "Something that tells me Zara isn't just any dog, Marcus, and I think she might be in more danger than we realized." As they prepared to gather up Zara and her puppies, Marcus noticed something else. Zara kept looking back toward the road, her ears alert and her body tense. It was as if she was watching for something, or someone. And Marcus got the feeling that whoever or whatever Zara was watching for wasn't going to be happy to find her gone. Marcus carefully picked up the two tiny puppies while his grandmother Rose gently coaxed Zara toward their old pickup truck parked outside the diner. The puppies were so small they fit in his cupped hands, their tiny bodies warm against his palms. They made soft mewing sounds that reminded Marcus of newborn kittens. "Easy, girl," Rose said to Zara as she opened the passenger door. "We're going to help you." But Zara hesitated at the truck, looking back toward the abandoned gas station one more time. Her ears were pricked forward, and Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders. She was listening for something. "What is it, Zara?" Marcus asked softly. "What do you hear?" For a moment, everything was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic on the main road. Then Zara seemed to make a decision. She jumped into the truck and settled herself carefully next to where Marcus was holding her puppies. The drive to Rose's house took only 5 minutes, but it felt longer. Marcus kept looking out the back window, though he wasn't sure what he was watching for. Zara sat perfectly still, but Marcus could tell she was alert to every sound. Rose's house was a small, cozy place with a wraparound porch and a garden full of flowers. Marcus had spent countless afternoons there, helping his grandmother with her cooking and listening to her stories. But tonight felt different. Tonight, they were bringing home secrets. "Let's get them inside," Rose said as she parked the truck. "We need to make sure the puppies stay warm." Marcus carried the puppies while Rose helped Zara out of the truck. The German Shepherd moved slowly, as if she was still recovering from her ordeal in the vending machine, but her eyes never stopped scanning their surroundings. Inside, Rose quickly prepared a makeshift bed using old blankets and towels. She placed it in the corner of the living room, away from the windows. Zara immediately settled onto the blankets and allowed Marcus to place her puppies beside her. "They're so beautiful," Marcus whispered, watching as the puppies instinctively found their way to their mother's warmth. Rose disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a bowl of water and some leftover chicken from dinner. Zara drank the water gratefully, but only ate a few bites of the chicken. She kept lifting her head to look toward the front door. "She's still scared," Marcus observed, "but not of us." Rose nodded. "I think you're right. I think she's scared of whoever she's running from." Rose pulled out the waterproof bag with the mysterious document. Under the bright living room lights, Marcus could see it more clearly. The paper was official-looking, with several stamps and signatures, but what caught his attention was a photograph attached to one corner. It was a picture of Zara, but she looked different. Her fur was clean and shiny, and she was wearing what looked like a military vest. Standing next to her was a man in uniform, but his face had been blacked out with a marker. "Grandma, look at this," Marcus said, pointing to the photo. Rose studied the image carefully. "She's a working dog," she said quietly. "A military or police dog. But why would someone black out the handler's face?" "And why would Zara be running?" Marcus added. Rose looked at the document again, reading the parts that weren't in code. According to this, Zara was reported missing 3 weeks ago, but here's the strange part. She was officially declared dead 2 days later. Dead? Marcus felt his stomach drop. But she's right here. "Exactly," Rose said. "So, why would someone want people to think she was dead?" Zara suddenly lifted her head and growled softly. It was a low, warning sound that made the hair on Marcus's arms stand up. She was looking toward the front window. Rose quickly turned off the living room lights and moved to the window, staying low. She peered through the curtains, and Marcus saw her body tense. "There's a car outside," she whispered. "A black sedan. It's been sitting there for about 2 minutes." Marcus crawled over to join his grandmother at the window. Sure enough, a dark car was parked across the street, its engine running. The windows were tinted, so they couldn't see inside. "Maybe it's just someone who got lost," Marcus suggested hopefully. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. The car was positioned perfectly to watch Rose's house, and something about it felt wrong. Zara growled again, louder this time. She was standing now, positioned between her puppies and the front door. Her hackles were raised, and Marcus could see her muscles tensing. "She recognizes that car," Rose said grimly. "Or at least, she recognizes whoever's inside it." They watched for another minute, but the car didn't move. Then, slowly the driver's side window rolled down. A hand emerged, holding what looked like a small device. The person in the car seemed to be scanning the neighborhood with it. "They're looking for something," Rose whispered. "Or someone." Marcus looked at Zara, who was still standing guard over her puppies. "They're looking for her." The device in the person's hand began to beep softly. Even from inside the house, they could hear it. The beeping grew faster as the person pointed the device toward Rose's house. "It's some kind of tracker," Rose realized. "They're tracking her." But how? Marcus looked at Zara, studying her carefully. She wasn't wearing any collar now, and he didn't see any obvious tracking devices. Unless... "Grandma," Marcus said suddenly, "what if the tracker is inside her?" Rose's eyes widened. "A microchip. All military dogs have them." The beeping from outside was getting faster now. Whoever was in the car knew exactly where Zara was. "We have to do something," Marcus said. "We can't let them take her." Rose was already moving toward the phone in the kitchen. "I'm calling the police." But as she reached for the phone, it rang. The sound was so unexpected in the quiet house that both Marcus and Rose jumped. Rose looked at the caller ID and frowned. "I don't recognize the number," she said. "Don't answer it," Marcus warned. But Rose was already picking up the phone. "Hello?" Marcus couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he could see his grandmother's face growing pale. "No," Rose said firmly. "I don't know what you're talking about." There was a pause as the person on the other end spoke. "I said no," Rose repeated, her voice getting stronger. "And if you don't leave my property, I'm calling the police." Rose hung up the phone and turned to Marcus. "They want Zara. They said she's stolen military property and they're here to retrieve her." "But she's not property," Marcus protested. "She's a living being, and she has puppies." "I know, honey, but they don't care about that." Zara had moved closer to them during the phone call. Now she was standing right next to Marcus, her warm body pressed against his leg. When Marcus looked down at her, she was looking up at him with those intelligent amber eyes. "She's asking for help," Marcus said. "She's asking us to protect her." Rose looked out the window again. The black car was still there, but now a second car had joined it. This one was white, and it looked official. "There are 2 cars now," Rose reported, "and I think I see men getting out of them." Marcus felt his heart racing. "What do we do?" Rose was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she looked at Marcus with determination. "We're not giving up Zara, not without a fight. But what can we do? We're just an old lady and a kid." "Sometimes that's enough," Rose said. "Go get my phone from the kitchen. I'm calling everyone I know." Marcus ran to get the phone while Rose kept watch at the window. When he returned, she was already dialing. "Hello, Sheriff Martinez. This is Rose Chen. I need your help. Yes, I know it's late, but this is important." While Rose talked to the sheriff, Marcus sat down next to Zara. She immediately moved closer to him, and he gently stroked her head. "I won't let them take you," he whispered. "I promise." Zara licked his hand once, and Marcus felt tears in his eyes. In just a few hours, this brave dog had become part of his family. He couldn't imagine letting someone take her away. Rose finished her call and moved to the window again. The sheriff is on his way, but those men are getting closer to the house. Marcus joined her at the window. He could see 3 men now, all dressed in dark clothes. They were walking up Rose's driveway, and one of them was carrying what looked like a large cage. "They came prepared," Rose said grimly. There was a knock at the front door. It was firm and authoritative, the kind of knock that demanded to be answered. "Open up," a voice called from outside. "We know you have the dog." Rose and Marcus looked at each other. Zara growled softly, but she didn't move away from Marcus. "What do we do?" Marcus whispered. Rose straightened her shoulders. "We tell them the truth, but we don't let them in." Rose walked to the front door, but didn't open it. "Who are you?" she called through the door. "We're here on official business," the voice replied. "We're retrieving stolen military property." "I don't see any badges," Rose said loudly, "and I don't see any official vehicles. How do I know you're really who you say you are?" There was a pause from outside. Then a different voice spoke. This one softer, but somehow more threatening. "Ma'am, you don't want to make this difficult. Just give us the dog, and we'll be on our way." "The dog has a name," Marcus called out suddenly. "Her name is Zara, and she has 2 newborn puppies." Rose looked at him with surprise, but Marcus wasn't finished. "And she's not stolen property," he continued. "She's a living being who needs help." "Kid," the voice outside said, "you don't understand what you're dealing with. That dog is dangerous." Marcus looked at Zara, who was still sitting calmly beside him. "She's not dangerous. She's protecting her babies." "Open the door," the first voice demanded. "Now." Rose looked out the window and saw one of the men walking around to the back of the house. "They're trying to surround us," she told Marcus. Just then, they heard the sound of sirens in the distance. The sheriff was coming. "You hear that?" Rose called to the men outside. "That's the sheriff. So, unless you want to explain to him why you're threatening an old lady and a child, I suggest you leave." There was silence from outside for a moment. Then Marcus heard footsteps moving away from the door. "This isn't over," one of the voices called back. "We'll be back." Rose and Marcus watched through the window as the 3 men walked quickly back to their cars. But instead of leaving, they just moved further down the street. "They're not giving up," Rose said. "They're just waiting." The sheriff's car pulled up just as the 2 black cars disappeared around the corner. Sheriff Martinez was a tall man with kind eyes and a gray mustache. Marcus had met him several times at community events. Rose opened the door as the sheriff approached. "Thank you for coming, Miguel." "What's going on, Rose?" Sheriff Martinez asked. "You sounded pretty shaken up on the phone." Rose quickly explained about finding Zara and the mysterious men who claimed she was stolen military property. Sheriff Martinez listened carefully, taking notes. "Can I see this document you found?" he asked. Rose handed him the waterproof bag. Sheriff Martinez studied the contents, his expression growing more serious. "This is complicated," he said finally. "According to this, the dog was part of a classified military operation. But there are things here that don't add up." "What kind of things?" Marcus asked. "Well, for one, if this dog was really stolen military property, why didn't they go through proper channels? Why show up at night with no official vehicles or uniforms?" "That's what I thought," Rose said. "Something doesn't feel right about this." Sheriff Martinez looked at Zara, who had been watching the conversation calmly. "She seems well-trained and protective of her puppies, but she doesn't seem dangerous." "She's not," Marcus said firmly. "She's just scared." "I'll tell you what," Sheriff Martinez said. "I'm going to make some calls. I have contacts at the military base about an hour from here. Let me see what I can find out about this dog and whether anyone is legitimately looking for her." "What about tonight?" Rose asked. "Those men said they'd be back." "I'll have a patrol car drive by every hour," Sheriff Martinez promised, "and I'll stay in touch. But, Rose, be careful. If this dog really is involved in some kind of classified operation, this could get complicated." After the sheriff left, Marcus and Rose sat in the living room with Zara and her puppies. The house felt quiet, but neither of them felt safe. "Why do you think they want her so badly?" Marcus asked. Rose looked at the document again. "I think Zara saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Or maybe she knows something that could get someone in trouble. But she's just a dog." "Military dogs are trained to be very smart," Rose explained. "They can be taught to recognize faces, remember locations, even carry messages. If Zara was part of a classified operation, she might know secrets that some people want to keep buried." Marcus looked at Zara, who was gently cleaning her puppies. "Is that why you were hiding in the vending machine? Because you knew someone was after you?" Zara looked up at him, and Marcus could swear he saw understanding in her eyes. "We're going to protect you," Marcus told her. "All of you." But even as he said it, Marcus wondered if a 6-year-old boy and his grandmother would be enough to stand against whatever forces were hunting for Zara. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, Marcus knew those men were still watching, still waiting, still planning to take Zara away. But Marcus had made a promise, and he intended to keep it. No matter what happened next, he wasn't going to let anyone hurt Zara or her puppies, even if it meant facing dangers he couldn't even imagine. What do you think Marcus should do next? Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to stand up to adults to protect something you cared about? That night, Marcus barely slept. Every small sound made him sit up in bed, listening for signs of danger. His grandmother had set up a cot for him in the living room, so he could stay close to Zara and her puppies, but sleep seemed impossible. Around 3 in the morning, Zara suddenly lifted her head and growled softly. Marcus was instantly awake. "What is it, girl?" he whispered. Zara was staring at the front window, her body tense. Marcus quietly got up and crept to the window, staying low like his grandmother had taught him earlier. Outside, he could see the faint outline of a car parked down the street. Someone was definitely watching the house. Marcus went to wake his grandmother, but found her already awake in her bedroom, sitting by her own window with a cup of coffee. "I know," she said quietly when she saw him. "They've been there for about an hour." "What are they waiting for?" Marcus asked. "I think they're hoping we'll get tired of this and just give up," Rose said. "But they don't know us very well." Marcus smiled despite his fear. His grandmother was tougher than she looked. As the sun began to rise, the watching car finally drove away. Marcus and Rose had breakfast while Zara nursed her puppies. The tiny pups were getting stronger already, and Marcus was amazed at how quickly they were growing. "I've been thinking about that document," Rose said as she made scrambled eggs. "There was something else in that bag that we didn't look at carefully." Rose retrieved the waterproof bag and emptied its contents on the kitchen table. Besides the official document and the photo, there was a small metal object that Marcus hadn't noticed before. "What is that?" Marcus asked. Rose picked it up and examined it. It was about the size of a thumb drive, but made of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light. One end had what looked like a small connector port. "I think this is some kind of data storage device," Rose said. "Like a computer memory stick, but military grade." Marcus looked at Zara, who had wandered into the kitchen. "Is this what you were protecting, Zara? Is this why those men want you back so badly?" Zara's ears perked up when she saw the device. She whined softly and pawed at Rose's hand. "She recognizes it," Marcus said. "She knows what this is." Rose held the device carefully. "If this contains classified information, then Zara isn't just a runaway military dog. She's a witness to something important." "But what?" Marcus asked. Before Rose could answer, the phone rang. It was Sheriff Martinez. "Rose," his voice was tense. "I've been making those calls about the dog. I need to come over right away, and whatever you do, don't let anyone else in the house." "What did you find out?" Rose asked. "Not over the phone. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When Sheriff Martinez arrived, his expression was grim. He sat down at the kitchen table and looked at both Marcus and Rose seriously. "I talked to my contact at Fort Morrison," he said. "According to their records, a German Shepherd named Zara was part of a special operations unit. But here's the thing. She wasn't reported missing. She was reported killed in action 3 weeks ago." "But she's right here," Marcus said, pointing to Zara. "Exactly, which means someone falsified her death report. And according to my contact, the unit she was assigned to has been under investigation for the past month." Rose showed Sheriff Martinez the metal device. "We found this with her. Do you think it's connected?" Sheriff Martinez whistled softly. "That's military-grade encrypted storage. If Zara was carrying this when she disappeared, it could contain evidence of whatever her unit was being investigated for." "So, the men who came here last night," Rose began, "probably aren't really here on official business," Sheriff Martinez finished. "They're here to cover something up." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "They're not trying to take Zara home. They're trying to silence her." "A dog can't testify in court," Sheriff Martinez said, "but she can lead investigators to evidence. And if she's carrying proof of wrongdoing," he gestured to the device. "What do we do?" Rose asked. "I'm calling the FBI," Sheriff Martinez said. "This is bigger than anything our department can handle." While Sheriff Martinez made his call, Marcus sat with Zara in the living room. The German Shepherd seemed to sense that something important was happening. She kept looking between Marcus and the front door, as if she was preparing for another confrontation. "You were brave to run away," Marcus told her softly. "You were protecting more than just your puppies, weren't you?" Zara rested her head on Marcus's lap, and he could feel her body relax slightly, but her ears remained alert. Sheriff Martinez finished his call and returned to the living room. "The FBI is sending agents, but they won't be here until this afternoon. Until then, we need to keep Zara safe." "What about her puppies?" Marcus asked. "They're so little." "We'll protect all of them," Rose said firmly. But even as she said it, Marcus heard a sound that made his blood run cold. Car doors slamming, multiple car doors. Sheriff Martinez immediately moved to the window. "There are 4 vehicles this time," he said grimly, "and more men than before." Marcus counted 8 figures approaching the house. They moved with military precision, spreading out to surround the property. "These aren't the same guys from last night," Sheriff Martinez observed. "These look like the real deal." But something about their approach still felt wrong to Marcus. If they were legitimate military personnel, why weren't they in uniform? Why weren't they driving official vehicles? The leader of the group knocked on the door. This time his voice was more authoritative. "Sheriff Martinez, we know you're in there. We're here on federal authority to retrieve classified military assets." Sheriff Martinez looked at Rose and Marcus, then made a decision. He opened the door but stepped outside, closing it behind him. Through the window, Marcus could see the sheriff talking to the men. The conversation grew heated quickly, with gestures and raised voices. "They're demanding that he turn over Zara," Rose said, reading their body language. Zara was standing now, her hackles raised. She moved protectively in front of her puppies, and Marcus could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted to defend her babies, but she also seemed to recognize the men outside. She knows them, Marcus realized. These might be from her old unit. The conversation outside ended abruptly. Sheriff Martinez came back inside, his face pale. "They have paperwork," he said, "official-looking documents that authorize them to retrieve Zara and any materials she might be carrying. But you said she was reported dead, Rose protested. I know. Something's not right here, but they're threatening to arrest me for obstruction if I don't comply. Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. We can't let them take her.
I don't think we have a choice, Sheriff Martinez said sadly.
But Zara had other ideas. As if she understood exactly what was happening, she walked to the back door and scratched at it softly. She wants out, Marcus said. Rose opened the back door, and Zara immediately ran outside. Marcus followed, despite his grandmother's protests. In the backyard, Zara ran to the old oak tree where Rose hung her laundry. At the base of the tree, she began digging frantically. What are you doing? Marcus asked. Within minutes, Zara had unearthed something wrapped in plastic. She carried it to Marcus and dropped it at his feet. Marcus unwrapped the plastic and gasped. Inside was another document, but this one was different. It was handwritten, and at the top was a name Marcus recognized from the news. Colonel James Morrison, the commanding officer of Fort Morrison. Marcus couldn't read all of the technical language, but he could make out enough to understand that it was some kind of confession. Colonel Morrison was admitting to selling military weapons to unauthorized buyers. Marcus, Rose called from the house. They're coming around back. Marcus quickly rewrapped the document and stuffed it inside his jacket. Zara looked at him with those intelligent eyes and barked once, softly. I understand, Marcus whispered. I'll keep it safe. The men rounded the corner of the house just as Marcus and Zara reached the back door. The leader, a tall man with cold gray eyes, pointed at Zara. There she is. Secure the animal. Two of the men moved toward Zara with what looked like a control rod, a device used to handle dangerous dogs. But Zara didn't attack. Instead, she did something that surprised everyone. She sat down and offered her paw to Marcus. Marcus knelt down and shook her paw gently. It's okay, girl. I won't forget you. Zara licked his hand once, then walked calmly to the men with the control rod. She allowed them to put a leash on her without resistance. But as they led her toward their vehicle, Zara did something that made Marcus's heart break. She looked back at her puppies, who were crying for their mother from inside the house. Wait, Marcus called out. What about her babies? The leader of the group shrugged. Military dogs don't have pets. Those puppies aren't our concern. But they need their mother, Marcus protested. They'll survive, or they won't. Either way, it's not our problem. Marcus felt anger burning in his chest. These men didn't care about Zara at all. She was just a thing to them, not a living being with feelings and a family. As they loaded Zara into a van, Marcus made eye contact with her one more time. She was trying to tell him something with her eyes, and suddenly Marcus understood. She wasn't giving up. She was trusting him to finish what she had started. The vehicles drove away, leaving Marcus, Rose, and Sheriff Martinez standing in the yard. Inside the house, two tiny puppies cried for their mother. I can't believe they just took her, Rose said, tears in her eyes. And left her babies to die, Marcus added, his voice shaking with emotion. Sheriff Martinez put his hand on Marcus's shoulder. I'm sorry, son. I should have done more to protect her. Marcus pulled the wrapped document from his jacket. Maybe we still can. He showed them what Zara had buried. Sheriff Martinez read it quickly, his eyes growing wide. This is a confession, he said. Colonel Morrison is admitting to arms dealing. If this is authentic, it's exactly the kind of evidence that could bring down his entire operation. And Zara was carrying proof of it, Rose said. That's why they wanted her back so badly. But now they have her, Marcus said, and they'll probably make sure she disappears for real this time. Sheriff Martinez was already reaching for his phone. Not if I can help it. This changes everything. The FBI needs to see this immediately. While Sheriff Martinez made his call, Marcus went inside to check on the puppies. They had stopped crying but were huddled together, looking lost without their mother. Don't worry, Marcus told them softly. We're going to get your mom back. But even as he said it, Marcus wondered if it was a promise he could keep. Zara was in the hands of people who had already proven they would do anything to protect their secrets. The only question now was whether a 6-year-old boy, his grandmother, and a small-town sheriff could stand against a conspiracy that reached all the way to the top of the military. Rose came and sat beside Marcus as he gently petted the puppies. You know what this means, don't you? She said. What? Zara trusted you with the most important thing she had. She chose you to be the one to expose the truth. Marcus looked at the document in his hands. It seemed impossible that something so small could be so dangerous. But he was beginning to understand that scheme de machine is the biggest secrets came in the smallest packages. Outside, storm clouds were gathering. Marcus had the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. What would you do if you discovered evidence of a crime but the criminals had all the power? Share your thoughts below. Marcus is going to need all the courage he can get. The FBI agents arrived at Rose's house that afternoon, but they weren't what Marcus had expected. Instead of the serious men in black suits he'd seen in movies, Agent Sarah Chen was a woman in her 30s with kind eyes, and Agent David Rodriguez looked like someone's friendly uncle. But when they examined Colonel Morrison's confession, their expressions became deadly serious. "This document is authentic," Agent Chen said after studying it carefully. "The paper, the ink, even the handwriting matches samples we have on file. Colonel Morrison wrote this." "But why would he confess to arms dealing in writing?" Rose asked. Agent Rodriguez looked up from his laptop. "According to our investigation, Morrison thought he was going to die. He was diagnosed with a rare heart condition 6 months ago. This confession was probably meant to be insurance, something to protect his family if his partners decided to eliminate him." "But he didn't die," Marcus pointed out. "No, he got experimental treatment and made a full recovery, which means this confession became a liability instead of protection." Agent Chen leaned forward. "Marcus, you said the dog, Zara, buried this document in your backyard?" Marcus nodded. "She knew exactly where to dig, like she'd hidden it there before." "Impossible," Agent Rodriguez said. "According to our timeline, Zara was at Fort Morrison until 3 weeks ago. She couldn't have buried anything in your grandmother's yard." Marcus thought about this. What if she didn't bury it? What if someone else did, and she just knew where it was? The agents exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" Agent Chen asked. "What if whoever buried it trained Zara to find it, like a backup plan?" Agent Rodriguez was typing rapidly on his laptop. "That's actually brilliant. If you wanted to hide evidence somewhere safe, you'd train your most trusted partner to retrieve it if something happened to you." "But who would have access to both Zara and this location?" Agent Chen wondered. Rose had been quiet during this conversation, but now she spoke up. "Marcus, remember what Sheriff Martinez said about Zara's unit being under investigation?" "Yeah. What if someone in her unit was working with the FBI? What if they're the one who buried the confession here?" Agent Chen's phone buzzed. She answered it quickly, speaking in low tones. When she hung up, her expression was grim. "We have a problem," she said. "Zara's been transferred to a private facility. Our contacts at Fort Morrison say they never authorized her removal." "What does that mean?" Marcus asked, though he was afraid he already knew. "It means the people who took her this morning aren't working for the military. They're working for Colonel Morrison." Marcus felt sick to his stomach. "Are they going to hurt her?" Agent Rodriguez closed his laptop. "We're going to find out. But first, we need to get you and your grandmother somewhere safe. If Morrison's people took Zara, they know you have the confession." As if summoned by his words, Sheriff Martinez's radio crackled to life. "All units, we have reports of suspicious vehicles surrounding the Chen residence on Maple Street." Through the window, Marcus could see cars pulling up outside, but this time there were more of them. At least 6 vehicles, and men were getting out of each one. "Back door," Agent Chen said immediately. "Now!" They quickly gathered Zara's puppies and the important documents. Marcus carefully wrapped out the tiny pups in a soft blanket, while Rose grabbed a bag with formula and supplies. As they headed for the back door, they could hear heavy footsteps on the front porch. Someone was trying to break down the front door. "This way," Agent Rodriguez whispered, leading them through Rose's back garden toward the neighbor's property. But as they reached the fence, Marcus heard a sound that made him stop in his tracks. It was a bark, Zara's bark. She was close. "She's here," Marcus whispered urgently. "They brought Zara with them." Agent Chen pulled out her radio. "All units, suspect K9 on scene. Do not engage." Through the fence, Marcus could see into the neighbor's yard. There was a van parked in the alley, and 2 men were standing beside it. Between them, straining against a heavy chain, was Zara. She had seen Marcus through the fence. Her tail was wagging frantically, and she was whining softly. "We have to help her," Marcus said. "It's too dangerous," Agent Rodriguez replied. "There are too many of them." But Marcus was already moving. Before anyone could stop him, he had squeezed through a gap in the fence and was running toward Zara. "Marcus, no!" Rose called out, but it was too late. The two men beside the van saw Marcus coming and reached for their weapons, but Zara saw them too. With a powerful lunge, she broke free from her chain and put herself between Marcus and the armed men. One of the men raised his gun, but Zara was faster. She knocked him down with her front paws, sending his weapon flying across the alley. The second man tried to grab Marcus, but suddenly Sheriff Martinez appeared from behind the van, his own weapon drawn. "Drop it," the sheriff commanded. "Now!" The man hesitated for a moment, then slowly put his hands up. Agent Chen and Agent Rodriguez came through the fence, followed by several other FBI agents Marcus hadn't seen before. "Secure the area," Agent Chen ordered, "and someone check on that dog." Marcus was already kneeling beside Zara, who was panting heavily but seemed unharmed. She licked his face enthusiastically, as if she couldn't believe they were together again. "Are you okay, girl?" Marcus asked, running his hands over her fur to check for injuries. Zara seemed fine, but Marcus noticed something attached to her collar. It was a small electronic device he hadn't seen before. "Agent Chen," Marcus called, "look at this." The agent examined the device carefully. "It's a listening device," she said. "They've been using Zara to spy on us." Agent Rodriguez was interrogating the captured men, but they weren't talking. However, their van contained something much more interesting. "Marcus, come look at this," Agent Rodriguez called. Inside the van were cages, restraints, and what looked like veterinary equipment. But what caught Marcus's attention was a folder labeled Project Silence. Agent Chen opened the folder and read quickly. Her face grew pale. "This is Morrison's plan," she said. "They were going to fake Zara's death again, permanently this time, and they were going to make it look like she died from injuries sustained during her escape." "But why go to all this trouble?" Rose asked. "Why not just destroy the confession?" "Because they don't know if there are copies," Agent Rodriguez explained. "Morrison is paranoid. He wants to eliminate every possible threat, including anyone who might have seen the evidence." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean us?" Agent Chen nodded grimly. "According to this plan, you and your grandmother were going to have an accident tonight, a gas leak in your house that would eliminate all witnesses." Rose sat down heavily on a nearby crate. "They were going to kill us." "But they didn't count on Zara," Marcus said, scratching behind the German Shepherd's ears. "She saved us again." Agent Rodriguez was reading more documents from the van. "There's something else here," he said. "Information about Morrison's entire operation. Names, dates, financial records. This isn't just about arms dealing. It's about treason." "What do you mean?" Sheriff Martinez asked. "Morrison wasn't just selling weapons to unauthorized buyers. He was selling them to enemies of the United States. This goes way beyond simple corruption." Agent Chen's radio crackled. "Agent Chen, this is headquarters. We've got Morrison in custody. Repeat, Colonel Morrison is in custody." Marcus felt a surge of relief, but Agent Chen's expression remained serious. "That's good news," she said into the radio, "but we still need to secure all evidence and witnesses. Morrison had partners, and they're still out there." As if on cue, the sound of approaching vehicles filled the alley. But these weren't enemy cars. They were FBI vehicles and police cars, surrounding the area with flashing lights. "It's over," Agent Rodriguez said. "Morrison's entire network is being rounded up as we speak." Marcus looked down at Zara, who was now calm and relaxed beside him. "You did it, girl. You helped catch the bad guys." But Zara wasn't paying attention to the praise. She was looking toward Rose's house, whining softly. "What is it?" Marcus asked. Then he realized. Her puppies. She wants to see her babies. They made their way back to Rose's house, which was now surrounded by law enforcement. Inside, Zara's two puppies were crying in their makeshift bed. When Zara saw her babies, she immediately went to them, sniffing them carefully and settling down so they could nurse. The relief in her eyes was unmistakable. Marcus sat beside them, watching the tiny family reunite. It was hard to believe that just this morning, it had seemed like they might never see each other again. Agent Chen sat down beside Marcus. "You know, what you did today was incredibly brave and incredibly dangerous." "I couldn't let them hurt Zara," Marcus said simply. "I understand. But Marcus, You should know that what happened here today is going to have consequences far beyond this little town. The evidence we've gathered is going to help prosecute one of the biggest corruption cases in military history. And Zara? Agent Chen smiled. Zara is going to be fine. In fact, given her service record and what she's been through, I think the military is going to retire her with full honors. She's earned the right to live peacefully with her family. Marcus felt his heart leap. You mean we can keep her? If your grandmother agrees, I think that can be arranged. Rose, who had been listening from the doorway, came over and sat down with them. I think this family has room for 3 more members, she said, gently petting one of the puppies.
Zara looked up at Rose and wagged her tail once, as if she understood every word.
Agent Rodriguez joined them in the living room. We found something else in Morrison's files, he said. Information about other military dogs who were part of his operation. Zara wasn't the only one who knew his secrets. Are they safe? Marcus asked. They are now. Thanks to the evidence Zara preserved, we're going to be able to locate and rescue several other dogs who were being used to cover up Morrison's crimes.
Marcus looked at Zara with new admiration. You weren't just saving yourself and your puppies. You were saving other dogs, too.
As the evening wore on and the law enforcement vehicles began to leave, Marcus realized that this incredible day was finally coming to an end. But he also realized that in many ways, it was just the beginning. Zara and her puppies would be part of their family now, and Marcus had learned something important about courage. Sometimes it meant standing up to powerful people, even when you were just a kid. Sometimes it meant doing the right thing, even when it was scary. Most importantly, he had learned that heroism came in many forms. Sometimes heroes wore uniforms and carried badges, and sometimes they had 4 legs and the courage to protect the people they loved. As Marcus drifted off to sleep that night, Zara settled down beside his bed, her puppies curled up against her warm fur. For the first time in weeks, all of them felt truly safe. Outside, Sheriff Martinez kept watch, but the danger had passed. The bad guys were in custody, the evidence was secure, and a family of heroes, both human and canine, could finally rest. But Marcus couldn't have imagined that their story would soon become national news, or that Zara would become one of the most famous dogs in America. The real surprises were yet to come. If Zara could talk, what do you think the first thing she would say to Marcus would be? Drop your guesses in the comments. 3 months later, Marcus woke up to the sound of puppies barking in the backyard. Zara's babies, who they had named Scout and Ranger, were now big enough to run around and play. They had grown into beautiful, energetic pups who followed Marcus everywhere. But this morning felt different. There was an excitement in the air that Marcus couldn't quite place. His grandmother was bustling around the kitchen, preparing what looked like a feast for breakfast. "What's going on, Grandma?" Marcus asked as he came downstairs. Rose smiled mysteriously. "You'll see, but first, go check on Zara. She's been restless all morning." Marcus found Zara in the living room, pacing by the front window. Her ears were alert, and she kept looking toward the driveway. "What is it, girl?" Marcus asked. "Are you expecting someone?" Zara barked once and wagged her tail, but kept watching the window. Scout and Ranger bounced around her legs, picking up on their mother's excitement. Then Marcus heard the sound of cars pulling into the driveway. Multiple cars. His heart jumped for a moment, remembering the last time that had happened. But when he looked out of the window, he saw something completely different. News vans, television crews, people with cameras and microphones were setting up equipment in front of his grandmother's house. "Grandma," Marcus called, "there are reporters outside." Rose came into the living room, wiping her hands on her apron. "I know, honey. They're here for you and Zara." "For us? Why?" Before Rose could answer, there was a knock at the door. Marcus recognized Agent Chen's voice calling from outside. "It's Sarah Chen. I have some very special visitors with me." Rose opened the door to reveal Agent Chen, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a man in military uniform, with more medals and ribbons than Marcus had ever seen. Behind him were several other officials, including a woman with a briefcase and a man carrying what looked like an official certificate. "Marcus," Agent Chen said with a huge smile, "I'd like you to meet General Patricia Williams, the Army Chief of Staff." The woman in uniform stepped forward and offered her hand to Marcus. "It's an honor to meet you, son. What you did took incredible courage." Marcus shook her hand, still confused about what was happening. "Thank you, ma'am, but I don't understand." General Williams looked at Zara, who had come to stand beside Marcus. "Today, we're here to honor both you and Zara for your service to your country." "Service?" Marcus asked. The man with the certificate stepped forward. "Marcus, because of your bravery in protecting Zara and preserving the evidence she carried, you helped expose a conspiracy that threatened national security. The information you helped recover led to the arrest of 17 people involved in illegal arms dealing." Agent Chen continued, "And Zara's actions saved the lives of countless soldiers who would have been endangered by the weapons Colonel Morrison was selling to enemy forces." General Williams opened the briefcase the woman behind her was carrying. Inside were 2 medals on ribbons, each in its own velvet-lined box. "Marcus Chen," the general said formally, "by order of the President of the United States, you are hereby awarded the Civilian Medal of Valor for exceptional courage in the face of danger." Marcus felt his mouth fall open as the general placed the medal around his neck. It was heavier than he expected, and the ribbon was striped with red, white, and blue. "And Zara," General Williams continued, turning to the German Shepherd, "you are awarded the Animals in War and Peace Medal of Bravery, the highest honor we can bestow on a military animal." Zara sat perfectly still as the general placed the medal around her neck. It was as if she understood the significance of the moment. But General Williams wasn't finished. "There's something else," she said. "Zara, your service record shows that you completed over 50 successful missions and saved the lives of dozens of soldiers. You have earned an honorable discharge and the right to retire with full military benefits." Rose wiped tears from her eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means," Agent Chen said with a smile, "that Zara is officially retired from military service. She can live here with your family for the rest of her life, and the government will provide for her medical care and other needs." Marcus knelt down and hugged Zara tightly. "You hear that, girl? You're really home now, forever." Zara licked his face and wagged her tail so hard her whole body wiggled. The man with the official certificate spoke up. "There's one more thing. Marcus, your actions have inspired the creation of a new program called the Young Heroes Initiative. It will teach children about courage and civic responsibility." "You're going to be the program's first official youth ambassador," General Williams added. "If you're interested." Marcus looked at his grandmother, who nodded encouragingly. "What would I have to do?" "Visit schools, talk to other kids about what you learned, help them understand that anyone can make a difference if they're brave enough to do the right thing." Marcus thought about all the children who might find themselves in situations where they needed to stand up to adults or protect something they cared about. "I'd like that," he said. After the official ceremony, the reporters wanted to interview Marcus and take pictures of him with Zara. Marcus was nervous at first, but Zara stayed right beside him, calm and patient as always. "Marcus," one reporter asked, "may be crowd. What was the scariest part of this whole experience?" Marcus thought carefully. "The scariest part was when they took Zara away, and I didn't know if I'd ever see her again. She had become part of our family, and families stick together." What would you say to other kids who might find themselves in a situation where they need to be brave? "I'd tell them that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. I was scared the whole time, but sometimes you have to do the right thing even when you're scared, especially when you're protecting someone you love." Another reporter asked, "Zara can't tell us her side of the story, but if she could, what do you think she would say?" Marcus looked down at Zara, who was sitting patiently beside him, despite all the cameras and noise. "I think she'd say that she was just doing her job, protecting the people she cared about and making sure the truth came out. That's what good soldiers do." As the interviews wrapped up, Agent Chen pulled Marcus aside. "There's something else you should know," she said quietly. "Remember I told you that other military dogs were involved in Morrison's operation?" Marcus nodded. "We've rescued all of them, 12 dogs total, and because of the evidence you helped preserve, every single one of them is being retired with honors and placed with loving families." Marcus felt a warm feeling spread through his chest. Zara didn't just save herself and her puppies. She saved all of them. That's right. And none of it would have happened if a 6-year-old boy hadn't been brave enough to crawl through a gap in a fence to help a scared dog. That evening, after all the reporters and officials had left, Marcus sat in the backyard with Zara and her puppies. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Scout and Ranger were playing tug-of-war with an old rope toy, while Zara rested her head in Marcus's lap. "Can you believe all that happened today?" Marcus asked her. Zara looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes that had first captured his heart 3 months ago. Rose came outside carrying a plate of cookies and 2 glasses of milk. "Mind if I join you?" Marcus scooted over to make room for his grandmother on the garden bench. "Grandma, do you think Zara really understands what happened today?" Rose watched as Zara gently corrected Scout when he got too rough with his sister. "I think Zara understands more than we know. She understands love, loyalty, courage, and sacrifice. Those are the most important things anyone can understand." "I keep thinking about that first day," Marcus said. "When I heard her whimpering in that vending machine, I almost walked away." "But you didn't," Rose pointed out. "You chose to help, and that choice changed everything." Marcus looked at the medal hanging around Zara's neck. It caught the last rays of sunlight and sparkled like gold. "Do you think she's happy here? I mean, she was a working dog. Maybe she misses having a job." As if answering his question, Zara got up and walked over to where Scout was getting too close to Rose's flower garden. She gently nudged the puppy away from the delicate plants, then returned to Marcus's side. "Looks like she has a new job," Rose said with a smile, "raising her babies and keeping this family safe." Over the following weeks, Marcus learned more about the impact of their actions. Colonel Morrison and his associates were sentenced to long prison terms. The weapons they had been illegally selling were recovered, and several terrorist plots were disrupted. Marcus received letters from military families whose loved ones had been saved because Morrison's operation was shut down. Each letter reminded him that what had started as a simple act of kindness toward a trapped dog had rippled outward to save lives around the world. But the most meaningful moment came 6 months later, when Agent Chen brought a special visitor to see them. The visitor was a young soldier named Private Jessica Martinez. She was home on leave and had asked specifically to meet Marcus and Zara. "I wanted to thank you both personally," she said, kneeling down to pet Zara. "My unit was supposed to receive weapons from Morrison's supply chain. If you hadn't exposed him, we would have gone into combat with faulty equipment. You saved my life and the lives of everyone in my squad." Marcus felt tears in his eyes as he watched this brave soldier hug Zara. It was a powerful reminder that their actions had protected real people with real families. That night, as Marcus lay in bed with Scout and Ranger curled up beside him and Zara keeping watch by the door, he thought about how much his life had changed since that afternoon when he first heard whimpering from an old vending machine. He had learned that courage came in many forms. Sometimes it was as simple as helping someone in need. Sometimes it meant standing up to powerful people who were doing wrong. And sometimes it meant trusting in the goodness of others, even when the situation seemed hopeless. Most importantly, he had learned that ordinary people, even 6-year-old boys, could make an extraordinary difference in the world if they were willing to act when it mattered. As Marcus drifted off to sleep, Zara came over and gently licked his hand. It was her way of saying goodnight, but it was also something more. It was her way of saying thank you for the courage that had brought them all together. Outside, the world was full of challenges and dangers, but inside this small house in Willowbrook, a family slept peacefully, knowing that love and courage had triumphed over fear and corruption. And in the morning, Marcus would wake up ready for whatever adventures lay ahead, with his faithful companion Zara by his side, and the knowledge that even the smallest acts of kindness could change everything. The story of the boy who found a dog in a vending machine had become a story of hope that would inspire children and adults for years to come. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin with the most ordinary moments of choosing to care. Marcus Chen, Zara, Scout, and Ranger had found their forever family, and the world was a little bit safer because a 6-year-old boy had decided to help a dog in need. The end. This incredible true story shows us that heroes come in all sizes, and sometimes they have 4 legs. What's the bravest thing you've ever done to help someone? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories that will restore your faith in humanity.